Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Marquette, and we're so glad you're with us on this November 3rd, 2022 to stay curious. A lot of space news today. We got the first dog to go to space, the first living creature. We've got a shotgun wedding that the communist leader wanted two cosmonauts to get married. We'll talk about that. We've got two astronaut birthdays and in the first shuttle of 16 shuttles launched in the month of November happened on November 3rd. So thank you, Marty Winkle, my co-producer, for being here today. We've got Connie McDaniels helping learn the Streamlabs program here, and we apologize if we that we dropped out earlier today, so we've rebooted ourselves here. And we wanted to thank right away our sponsor here in our Stay Curious Studios is sponsored by the Holiday Inn in Titusville at Exit 95, where they're going to help us host our inaugural Space Memorabilia Show this Saturday, sponsored by Bid Again Auctions, Ken Havocott Memorabilia, and Delaware North. And Delaware North, of course, are the managers of the Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex. I'm showing you a beautiful picture thereof, and we certainly appreciate Delaware North helping us out financially to bring you some Stay Curious program and also finance our memorabilia show here. That we're going to have free appraisals Saturday 9 to 5. We want to raise $5,000 for our gallery upgrades, and there will be plenty of vendors there and things to choose from to make you happy, and maybe a Christmas gift for someone under the tree here at the memorabilia show. There will be space flown things, autographs that you can find. We're going to talk all about that tomorrow on our Stay Curious program on Friday. So we're going to show you some of the items that we're going to have in our mini auction also. So thank you all very much for supporting us any way that you can. But today in space history, the star is, of course, Laika. How many of you out there have a dog named Laika because of this muttnik that flew in space 62 years ago on November 3rd, 1957, incredibly just 29 days after the Russians shocked the world with a 185-pound beach ball-sized spacecraft called Sputnik 1 right there. All it had in it was a radio transmitter and a tape recorder that kept broadcasting a beep, beep, beep to the world. It wasn't even Morse code, but it shocked the world on October 4th, 1957, that if the Russians could do that, maybe they would put a nuclear bomb in orbit around the Earth. Because this was the Cold War buildup at the time, and it was a frightening time with nuclear missiles being put on rockets and pointing them at Washington, D.C. and Moscow, okay? But this was a secret complex where Laika was launched from. And by the way, my blue screen behind me here, green screen of the Blue Earth, is our first shuttle mission launched on November 3rd, 1995. That is STS-66, and a very important Atlas 3 mission, atmospheric mission that set the baseline for 30 years later of what we know about the global climate change. So I just wanted to mention that's why we've got that. You're going to hear about that mission here in a minute. But back to Sputnik, and there is Laika in the spacecraft that took her to orbit. She was not designed to survive or come back, which was kind of a travesty, but back in 1957, we had to use living creatures to test things before man went to space, and this was the technology of the time. Today, we have mannequins. We've got a couple mannequins that are in our Artemis Orion spacecraft ready to take data, and just like people would be there. But the Russians used dogs, and NASA used chimpanzees and other primates to test things. America, Marty, even considered putting a pig in space in a Mercury capsule because pigs' organs apparently are I'm doing good. Streamlabs and give you a break from du jour, and who
speaker, if you will.
I think he was a college. Heard him before. Guy Gardner. Yeah, you don't want to miss any of the astronauts out at the Visitors Complex. Uh, they have an astronaut every day that will, for free with your admission, you can hear him talk at 11 o'clock in the morning and then at 3:15 in the afternoon. And then they go walk over. Our good friend Nick Thomas is the astronaut wrangler. Nick appears on Stay Curious now on Mondays a couple times a month. And Nick wrangles those astronauts over to the merchandise gift shop and where they do some autographs. So did you get your book autographed, Marty?
I sure did.
All right. Marty's got a special book where he gets all kinds of astronaut autographs in there. So, well, I digress there from our Mutnick in space there. But while I'm thinking about it, I want to say hi to Dan Cisneros. Dan Cisneros sat in our studio the other day and talked to me. He came down for that rocket launch, Marty, of the Falcon Heavy from Savannah, north of Savannah, Georgia. Dan Cisneros did. And boy, all he saw was clouds. I'm sure driving all that far was kind of, not too many people were happy with that. Even the people that spent money out there in there. Uh-oh.
Hat on.
Oh, my hat. Okay. Here we've got Marty. Move the camera around if you can. Thank you, Bruce. Here's Bruce Jacobs here, our IT guy. We don't get Bruce on there enough. Thank you all. Oh, wow. That's a heck of a German chocolate cake there. All right. There's Karan.
Yeah.
And thank you all. Angie Roberts, Karen's assistant and our finance director. There's up. Yeah, there's yeah. Don't be pushing those senior citizens around there. Yeah, Nita, thank you, honey. There's Anita Truex there. Appreciate that. All there. Oh, thank you. Love you too. We have a good time here. This is our team here at the American Space Museum. And they certainly have supported Stay Curious from the beginning. None more than my boss, Karan Conklin, who has understood what we're trying to do here. And that's provide you with something that no one else does.
That's right. Open your gift.
Open my gift?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I share my birthday with astronaut Chili Chilton. So I hope he's having a good enough time here. Oh, it's in a nice box. Nothing's ticking. Nothing's ticking. So
Like a little boy, have to shake it.
that's right. All right. So let's see. What do I have here? Oh, there's a nice little toy. Well, thank you all. There is a SLS Orion globe there, Marty. Thank you for showing that. All right, look at that. I'll bet I'm the first kid on my block to have this.
You are.
Got the SLS in there, the Earth, Mars, and the Moon, and the Andromeda Galaxy. All right, thank you. Sweet. Well, thank you all very much here. I'll look at my card. I know Dave Stange said happy birthday to me, and I have received over 200 thank you birthday wishes, and I wanted to get my list here. Oh, where's my list? Affection, all the genuine affection that made all of us want to celebrate you in the first place. Well, thank you all. Look at all the wonderful things I'll read from my colleagues here. But Karen, I asked for $400, just a number I picked out of the sky.
Okay.
And we have got $405 donated to our museum because of my birthday. Thank you, Cliff Watson, my astronomy buddy in Pomona, Australia. Thank you, Earthling Nicole Pisano-Stott, of course, astronaut Stott, a great friend of our museum. Michael Jasky, Lois Honeycutt of Space Hipsters. Thank you, Lois. Doug Forrest, our artist buddy. Tom Celentano, he's always contributing to our museum. Thank you, Stay Curious friend Tom. My high school prom queen, Patty Myers, saw you a couple weeks ago with your husband, Randy Winecoop. They were one of our couples in high school, got together, and they support us from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Thank you, Patty and Randy, so much. Dr. Al Kohler, thank you, sir, one of our ASM founders, John Jack McGill, And Bonnie Hogan, a friend of mine from Theater Bristol, our theater days, Bonnie. That was a lot of fun when I had black hair and we were young. So thank you all for supporting our museum by contributing to my favorite nonprofit, of course, here. So thank you. Why don't you all take the cake and start eating it, and I'll finish our Stay Curious program here. Hooray! Thank you all. Yeah. Yes, that's the cake there. Bruce, we need Bruce on Stay Curious, one of our unsung heroes here, doing all kinds of things that usually entail being on ladders. So thank you, folks. God bless you. I love all of you. Okay? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's been a great birthday. Okay. Whew. So we get through that. There's Laika. Thank you all. I appreciate all the birthday wishes. I am proud to say I'm 69 years old, and since I was 8 years old, all I can remember is astronauts and telescopes. And crazy about astronauts and telescopes, I say, since I was 8 years old. And in 61 years, the only thing that's changed I'm crazy about, besides astronauts and telescopes, is girls. So there you have it. But thank you very much. What a surprise. And my favorite German chocolate cake, too. Well, here's what Laika looked like in this spacecraft. Of course, she didn't come back alive, but it was very sophisticated. And like I said, she is honored with stamps, all kinds of memorabilia out there. And I wonder how many thousands of dogs out there, you space geeks, have named Laika, which means barker in Russia, because she was liked to bark a lot. She was a stray, a mix between a husky and a terrier. And the Moscow scientists thought that strays around Moscow would be good test subjects because they were probably used to hardship and being hungry. And in this 1957, we didn't know if living creatures could exist in space. Could they survive the launch and the G forces, the gravity pressure on you? And then would our organs operate in the vacuum of space? So that was a very important mission, and it shocked the world. Again, exactly what this guy, Nikita Khrushchev, wanted to do. Here is the first secretary of the Communist Party. He had 10 years of power from September 53 to October 64. And he started their space program and wanted to use it for propaganda. And during Khrushchev, Nikita Khrushchev, Khrushchev is how you spell Khrushchev. A very seminal person in history. He led the Soviet Union out of the Stalin and Lenin type of communism. He did a lot of bold things domestically and in space. He narrowly avoided the nuclear war with missiles in Cuba in 1962. He ordered a U-2 plane shot down, a spy plane, and Gary Powers, an American, was on that. And they held him hostage and paraded his trial in front of the world. By the way, Gary Powers is from Pound, Virginia, which was in my sales territory when I lived 35 years between the Blue Ridge and the Smoky Mountains. During Khrushchev's tenure of 10 years, the Berlin Wall was erected. And but the other leaders thought he had a proclivity to be reckless. They didn't like all this danger that he was putting humans through in the space program. During the propaganda that Khrushchev pioneered led to him to be the Time magazine Person of the Year. There he is with his spacecraft, the Sputnik 1, and a crown. That's the buildings there in Moscow, their parliament and so forth, like a crown over his head. His propaganda was Sputnik 1. He wanted them to terrorize the world, thinking that it had a nuclear warhead on it. Sputnik 2 and the dog, just a month later, went from a 200-pound object to 1,200 pounds. Scientists in America were really worried that Russia was going to conquer the world. Then he ordered the first woman to go to space, all right? He said, we want our homeland, our motherland, to have the first woman to go to space, and that was Valentina Tereshkova. She was the last of 6 cosmonauts in their one-man Voskhod. And then their multiple spacecraft was just the one-man Voskhod with some of the stuff taken out of it to hold another person. And Khrushchev demanded that they put 3 cosmonauts in that space flight. And they didn't wear spacesuits. It was very dangerous. And when those cosmonauts were in space, Leonid Brezhnev staged a coup over Khrushchev and threw him out of power. And and then they brought down this 3-man crew that were lucky to stay alive. But one of the other amazing things that he did, as you see Khrushchev there with Valentina Tereshkova, and that is Popolov beside her, and Yuri Gagarin is raising his arm there, their first cosmonaut in space, was Khrushchev concocted the fact that he wanted her to marry a cosmonaut and then bear the first human being born from parents who had orbited the Earth before, all right? And apparently she had a crush on this astronaut, Bayev, okay, Andrean Nikolaev, Andrean Nikolaev. He was in space on Vostok 3, and then, so he was the 3rd person to go to space. She was the 6th of the cosmonauts, all right. And then he was in Soyuz 9 for 21 days. Well, they married on November 3rd, 1963 at a Moscow wedding palace. Khrushchev gave the bride away. Top government and space leaders wanted to come to this. It was too small of a place to have a gigantic ceremony like they wanted. The marriage sent a fairy tale message to the country. And a year after her June 1964 space flight, Valentina Tereshkova bore the first space baby, and that was, her name's Elena. And of course, mother and daughter both traveled in space. They made a big deal about that. She became a surgeon and is, of course, in her 60s. Her mom is still alive. Valentina Tereshkova is still alive. And I think she's age 86. She's been in the Politburo and all kinds of things. Nikolaev died in July 2004 at age 74. But they only remained married. Their marriage basically ended in 1977, though they got divorced in 1982, and both of them remarried in there. But what an interesting fairy tale of this man, Nikita Khrushchev, wanting his woman and a male cosmonaut to get married and have a baby, and they did. So I call it a shotgun wedding, and that's a phrase that many of you might not know if you're not an old guy like me. But basically, if you got the farmer's daughter pregnant, the farmer father was going to show up with a shotgun and say, "Son, you're marrying my daughter," and that's sort of where this euphemism of comes from, of a shotgun wedding, with Nikita Khrushchev holding the shotgun and saying, "You guys are going to get married." So, very interesting chapter of space history when you think of all the danger and the pride that goes with going to space and so forth. And then you've got this sort of circus going on in the background there. Very, very interesting. Khrushchev died of a heart attack near his home in Moscow. When he was dethroned, they basically scrubbed him from their memory banks, all right, which was kind of sad. 10 years of being their leader, he was denied a state funeral in interment in the Kremlin Wall. Instead, he's buried at a regular cemetery in Moscow. They didn't announce his death until hours later, and they buried him, and then they surrounded the cemetery with troops, all right, in there. Pravda, the newspaper of record, had a one-sentence announcement of the former premier's death, but Western newspapers did considerable about his death. But can you imagine that? Running your country for 10 years, the paper gives you one sentence. They won't bury you with honors or even have a state funeral for you. So Nikita Khrushchev will always be tied to the Russian space program because of the things that we discussed today. So, well, birthday time, and this birthday, a little younger than me. Happy 68th birthday to three-time astronaut Kevin Chilton. Chilton's nickname's Chili. He was twice a pilot on STS-49, the maiden flight of Endeavour in 92, and STS-59 in 94, and then he commanded STS-76 in 1996. He is a 4-star general, the highest military rank achieved by any military person in the shuttle program. And he's apparently a pretty nice guy, like everybody on November 3rd is, of course. There he is in space. He's a heck of a guitarist, plays that Fender like a master, and he's in the astronaut rock band called Max Q. So I'd love to see him in there. Looks like he is going the way of me, losing his hair a little bit there, as he had some hair there in one of his flights there. So happy birthday to Chili Chilton. And then yesterday we had the 77th birthday, or 78th birthday of 5-time shuttle flyer Jeff Hoffman. By the way, Chili Chilton, I forgot to mention, was born in Los Angeles, California. So he's one of California's astronauts there. Yesterday on November 2nd, we had Terry White here, and you want to catch Terry's Orbital Processing Facilities episode, talking all about returning Columbia to space on STS-2. So we forgoed celebrating Dr. Jeffrey Hoffman, born November 2nd in Brooklyn, and he spent 50 days in space, 5 flights, all right, and there he is talking about those 5 flights at one of the popular talks I'm sure he goes. He was a spacewalker, 4 EVAs, including a Hubble telescope repair mission on STS. I forget which one that was on there that he was on. So, but happy birthday to these 2 astronauts, Jeff Hoffman and Chili Chilton. And blasting off today on November 3rd. And Marty, I got up at 1 o'clock in the morning and saw a candle lit for me at 1:21. SpaceX launch of a communication satellite. That was kind of cool. But on this date, 1994, STS-66 was launched. And there's a very unusual photograph of a rocket launch taken, has to be from a camera hanging off the remote service structure, don't you think, Marty? You're familiar with that?
Yeah.
Out there.
It would have to be, or else there was a drone back in the days.
Yeah, there was no drones in 1994. Thank you. This is an important flight that a lot of you don't know or care about. The Atlas, 3rd time they flew this Atlas mission called Atmospheric Laboratory for Applications in Science. Here's our astronauts in space. Don McNongle was on his 3rd and last flight as commander. Kurt Brown is on his 2nd of 6 flights. Let's see, Don is on the upper right. Kurt Brown's right behind me there. On the far left, I know that mustache is Joe Tanner, 1st of 4 flights. You had 3 rookies here. Ellen Ochoa, this was her 2nd of 4 flights. She later became the first Hispanic, she's the first Hispanic woman to go to space, and then was the first Hispanic director at Johnson Space Center. We'd love to talk to Ellen Ochoa on Stay Curious. Joe Tanner is on the left. Jean-Francois Clairvoy was on his 1st to 3rd flights, and Scott Perezinski there's in right to me over here. Scott is. So what a beautiful flight they had. There's their patch. The Earth in the background and the sun, because they were studying the atmospheric effects of the sun on the ozone layer, okay? And the timing of this flight in the fall when the Antarctica ozone hole is diminishing, allowed scientists to study the effects at mid-latitude of this ozone and the way the Antarctica air recovers. This important data in this spacecraft right here that we're looking at on our green screen, this all of these instrumentations here, they provided an important baseline that 30 years later we're using to know that we have problems on Earth on global climate change, and we fear that a lot of it's been caused by us here on Earth and are putting pollutants in the air. And we know that many of you are concerned about that, and we know some of you are out there even doing things about it. So this 8-day mission ended, and like I said, has given us a great baseline. And I want to thank watching us today, Tom Usiak. Thank you for your personal phone call, Tom. Doug Forrest, Paul Forrester. All right, Doug Forrest and Paul Forrester here. We have Dave Stange, Melissa Pope, Christopher Mick is watching in Wisconsin. Steve Hammer, Esteban Mozello. Thank you, Hazel Banks, and for wishing me a birthday and watching Stay Curious. And and Ben Husett. And we're sorry about any audio dropouts we're having. Don't know what's going on with our Wi-Fi or the glitches going on, but I'll just tell you, we persevered on, and I am so blessed to have worked with all these wonderful people here at the American Space Museum. I love them all. And wanted to leave today with just because it's my birthday, I just don't want you all to forget about the astronauts we have orbiting the Earth. And you can find an app to see the space station go overhead. And 22 years ago, this is what the space station looked like when the first crew, led by Bill Shepard and 2 cosmonauts, first Expedition 1, took residence there. This is what the space station looks like today. Quite a difference 22 years later, but we have continuously had human beings orbiting Earth for 22 years, and that is something else. And like I said, thank you all for your birthday wishes. In my mind, I always, Marty, look like this. So, young, trim, slim, with my telescopes. This is actually 50 years ago. Yes, Marty.
You look kind of punchy.
I look kind of pudgy. Well, okay, if you say so. In the face, probably. Yeah, well, that's why I grew a beard. No, but yeah, there's my Beetle haircut, 1972, probably back in the day. There, my first 2 telescopes, and boy, am I blessed that you all want to listen to what I have to say on a regular basis, what we have to say here about the American Space Museum, because what we do is we preserve the birth of America's space age right here in this delivery room, Brevard County. And this is, like I said many times, I pinch myself 9 miles away from the rocket launch pads that I read about and dreamed about all my life. And it's just amazing to have good friends like Marty Winkle and our whole staff here. That we're a good group here, folks. And thank you for donating some money to the American Space Museum. When you do, you know our nonprofit is going to use it the best way we can. And we do need help because we are a nonprofit. And it costs a lot of money to keep this place open. And we're doing our best to give you content like no one else can, so that you know that you're proud to support the American Space Museum. So with that note, thank you, Holiday Inn, coming from our Holiday Inn studios today. We want to see you at Saturday at our memorabilia show, or go online and you can see how to be part of our 12 item auction, mini auction, to raise some money for improve our collections here. And we certainly thank Delaware North for their financial support of Stay Curious. So tomorrow we'll talk all about our memorabilia show and have a little bit of space history. Thank you, Marty. Thank you, our new Streamlabs volunteer, Connie McDaniel. And thank you all for your birthday wishes. It certainly warms my heart. And remember me as loving you all out there as we together bridge the space between us.